Today, I've muted Beige because of something he said in the pre-show. This is ChillPoint. He knows what he said. Oh, right. I realize I can't mute Beige without also muting Heather, so...
Weird that, huh?
I guess you can talk.
It's funny, because I said that, but Beach was not saying actual words. He was miming all that.
Yeah, I actually did have you muted.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you were still miming, even though...
I didn't know what could be heard and what couldn't, so I'm like, well, it'll be fun if Heather can be heard, but I can't. So
agreed.
We could try to figure out how that's working.
I mean, I can get tape. I've got a whole bunch of it in that cupboard over there.
Don't worry, Paul. We're not going to cause any troubles today because we have a meter.
Oh, please don't use that. That's so tacky.
It is so. It is the tackiest f***ing thing we have on this mixer.
Stop it. I will take away your mixer privileges.
I feel like
you shouldn't have let me sit in front of
this is the traditional. We just got a Go XLR like first stream.
Yep.
I'm glad I didn't get the fancy one with all the other shit.
I bet it was loud too. I bet it was loud.
No, it's not too bad.
I turned it down from the default because they have it running at like 100% default, and that's no.
You should be happy that I didn't have this for when I did the anime thing, because I would have just been smashing that goddamn thing the whole time.
Wait,
I will ban you from the streaming room.
Yeah.
Instead, were you just swearing? Like,
I was swearing a lot. Like, there's a great.
There's nothing wrong. When did we have a rule of no swearing on stream? Gosh, I've seen all you guys play Magic.
Yeah, it's true.
That's the fundamental problem with the like beepy button on the thing, is that you have to be thinking, I'm about to swear, I will push this button.
Yep.
So it's basically only good for goofs. Like, it's not actually good for muting yourself when you're about to swear for real.
Well, what's frustrating about this too, I asked her, like, is it customizable? She says no, it makes a beep sound, it makes a beep tone, that's it. And I'm like,
it's just
where's
bizarre.
The fun in that?
Yeah, the beep sound can't be changed.
Yeah.
What if I wanted
everybody would change it to
I'd make
to
it
a
a
goose
duck.
honk.
I'd make it a duck.
Oh yeah,
I find the quack sound over a swear really funny. It's way more funny than beep.
We're like
I should find a sound effect for that for my own editing purposes.
Presumably it's something that they could change with just like a software update at some point, but
I imagine, yeah. I bet it's not hard-coded, but
anyway, welcome to the show. This is ChillPoint, the show where we talk about this week's video game news as seen on CheckPoint at youtube.com/loadingreadyrun.
I think the very first thing we have to point out, based on one comment that I've seen on the homework episode you were supposed to watch, is that yes, we are Canadian. That's true.
Oh, are we having troubles with that? People not figuring that out?
Didn't realize we were Canadian, and we never introduced that. So I feel like I would just get that out of the way. We are actually Canadian, yeah.
So the joke, otherwise the joke at the beginning doesn't really make sense. Yeah,
which is weird because the whole rundown I did on the amount of dildos that we have in Victoria versus Cyberpunk, where like I live in Victoria, BC, very left wing, very left coast. I'm like,
I know, but you gotta introduce new viewers all the time.
We've certainly mentioned it
stamping down our doors.
We've certainly mentioned it on previous checkpoints. I mean, we've talked about Canadian stuff a lot on previous checkpoints. Yeah. But I don't. I guess we have to reiterate it on every episode.
Yeah, I guess.
The name 5 Canadians thing. You might want to make that number higher. I know at least 13 of them, and they all work here.
Mm-hmm. It's so weird.
Or more. I always say 13, but I feel like there's actually more of us.
It's way out here. Holy shit. Hey, welcome to ChillPoint, everybody, for January 8th, 2021.
The only time Beach sees himself.
Have you ever felt your hair?
For your own hair. Holy. Get high and put your hands in your hair.
Getting high off those fumes.
Let's talk about news that we did in the episode, which was largely Nintendo related.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
I actually don't know how that happened either. That was
Yeah, Beach tries so hard sometimes to find Nintendo news.
We're still,
and they often don't have a drop to give you.
I feel like we're still in the the whatever the news equivalent of the turkey coma after Christmas is.
Yeah.
Where people are still kind of like, the new year, yeah, but not really.
Nothing interesting ever happens in the first week of the new year.
Yeah.
Nothing interesting ever happens.
Video games, nothing interesting happens.
Yes. For video game
I'd like
news.
to keep it that way, to be honest.
Yeah.
So the first thing we're talking about was the Level Up Games being bought by Nintendo.
Next Level Games.
Next Level Games, sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
Based in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yes. Which, I mean, we don't usually talk about mergers and acquisitions. But this one was fun because, for one thing, it's in Vancouver, which is cool. And also could talk about Luigi's Mansion, which everybody likes Luigi's Mansion.
I like Luigi's Mansion.
And I did not know it wasn't a first-party title, actually.
Well, and that's with Punch-Out and with Super Mario Strikers and then Strikers Charged, it was like all these things we thought were just first-party titles. And because you generally don't look into it that hard. It's not like Nintendo is stamping everybody else's names.
Based on some forums that I read, there are a lot of people who consider second party first party.
Yeah.
Because they don't they just think first party third party is what we should leave it at, and that second party is a made up thing.
It is.
The second party distinction is kind of loose.
It's it's a weird gray area, right? It's like it's just a way to be like it's not quite in house, but it might as well be.
Yeah. Like the idea of a first party title is a title that's being made by the company that is publishing it, and generally that also means publishing it to put on their own platform, right? So that's kind of your first party idea. Mm-hmm. And third party means that this is being created by, because whenever you hear like a contract, I was referring to a third party being somebody outside the either the complainant and the respondent, right? Like whenever you have that thing, it's like those are your two central parties to an argument.
Yeah.
And so a third party is always somebody who's thought as being completely external that comes in to do the thing. And so there was that need for, well, what do we call a group that is very tightly tied to an organization but doesn't actually work for the organization? Like you couldn't call Grezzo a second party studio, even though they made the Majora's Mask.
They do a lot of the remakes,
right? They do remakes. They did Ever Oasis for the 3DS and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so it's like you can't call Grezzo a second party, even though they were doing some very tightly tied titles. They're still technically a third party. And in this case, Next Level Games sounds like they're also a third party. There's been some other third party studios that have done nothing but stuff for Nintendo platforms. So it's like, second party was this thing we came up with to be like, there's a much tighter relationship there between a ostensibly independent studio.
But you would never call an indie a third party, even though they totally are.
Yeah.
It's
because people are always talking about AAA gaming when they do that.
It tends to be.
I mean, I feel like there's the line of, of actual investment, right?
Yeah.
Like for a long time, Bungie was sort of a second party studio to Microsoft, where they were partially owned and sort of exclusive to Microsoft, but not actually part of Microsoft, and they bought themselves back out of that.
Yeah, but it's that sense of being like, we are 100% bankrolled by Microsoft, but we are not Microsoft Game Studios. We are a separate studio.
All right, so Pokemon Company, second party.
In essence, I mean, because the Pokemon Company itself is a consortium of three different companies, right?
Yeah,
Where
but the Pokemon Company is what makes Pokemon now. It's not
Game
It's not
Freak.
Game Freak, and it's not
Creatures Inc.
Creatures Inc. Thank you. I always forget Creatures Inc., but they're always in there.
Yeah, but Pokemon Company is like, it's a consortium of 3 different groups that say that we will be making this product together. Does Game Freak still make it? Well, the studio would, except that it's attributed to the Pokemon Company and not to Game Freak. But if you run credits, I'm sure it says Game Freak Studios.
I mean, it says all of them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll have all of them, obviously.
It's been a while since I've paid attention, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, honestly, obviously, the relationships between video game studios are much more complicated than the 3 bucket
Categories.
system allows.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
such is the way.
We have essentially gone back to redefine what these things mean because people are in need of ways to define stuff, and they do it in a very ham-handed method.
Well, I mean, I know Next Level is a studio that people thought was already first party because they do, I think, exclusively do Nintendo games.
Well, it's especially in the
And
context.
now they definitely exclusively do.
I mean, especially in the context of Nintendo, who is as we all know, sort of notoriously tight with their IPs. Although that's been opening up lately. But when something like Luigi's Mansion comes out, which is like not only using the IP, but clearly using the actual like models and stuff from mainline Mario games, I just assumed it was a Nintendo made Mario game.
I mean, when you stand at PAX and you're playing the demo and they're giving you merch and you're doing all the things at Luigi's Mansion everywhere, right? It's at no point do they say, "Did you know this is made by a Canadian developer?" Next Level Games.
I mean, Nintendo's going to be the one that's probably footing the bill for a lot of the PR. In that sense, because it is their IP.
Well, and I mean the value for these like Next Level's whole thing, like they're basically working as a white label. Like it's not like Nintendo is stealing the credit for it. That's part of their modus operandi. Is they basically act as a outsourced studio.
Yeah, but they do get acquired, and it's unusual because Nintendo doesn't do like a lot of acquisitions for buying studios. They seem to just have a lot of second party studios that they do work with and maintain relationships.
Yeah. I still maintain that there's a lot of stuff in the industry where people have had terminology to describe stuff, and then they've come up with justifications to try to invent new terminology. So they either sound smart, or that they can try to cram their own thing in. I saw somebody do this the other day where I was reading the Raspberry Pi forums. They're like, well, the Raspbian is now known as Raspberry Pi OS. And somebody's like, right, but at some point we're going to transition to the Pi OS will be what the name of the new version is, and then everything before that will be known as Raspberry Pi ARM HF operating system, which stands for ARM Hard Float. But it's like, that's what's going to be known as. And then somebody responded with, I keep seeing that come up in Google searches that only have your name attached to them and nobody else's. I don't think, dude, that you're going to make this catch on. Yeah, it's stop trying to make fetch a thing. And it's like... That's what I think this whole, we have second party, or why do we have AAA but not AA or A-rated, like that kind of thing that I'm seeing go by in chat. And it's like, it's all shit that we just came up with to try to sound smarter than we actually are.
A different thing.
It's like with any categorization system, right? Boxes help us talk about things and make sure we understand that we're talking about the same types of things. But just because things are in categories doesn't mean that the lines between the categories are, super well defined. And that's okay. Is a second party studio a hot dog? Who knows?
Oh, please. I'm fine with anyone having that conversation away from me.
Yeah.
I mean, and by that I mean, chat, you go nuts, but the two of you, drop it.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know how to continue that conversation.
So good. I'm glad.
There's additional interesting thing that I'd seen very briefly about Next Level Games is that apparently they had sharing, employee ownership of the company was spread out. So this acquisition, where Nintendo was like, we are basically buying this company out, probably means that they are then part of the agreement would be that they would be paying employees to help them divest of their own share of the company to bring them on board. But I didn't read a lot about what this whole agreement means. It's just that when I heard that they're selling the company, it's not like the two people who are like at the top of the company are saying, "Oh, we're selling the company and now it's all done." The employees would have had to have probably been a part of this too, if there was actually employee ownership, not just we own some share price, like some stock options and stuff. It's like we literally own shares of the company.
Oh, that's neat.
But I don't know how any of that worked out, and it sounds like it did.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to take effect at the beginning of March, and as far as I'm concerned, somebody wanted to sell something. And Nintendo probably bought it so that other people wouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
Did Nintendo have a Vancouver presence before this?
Nintendo of Canada is based out of Richmond, BC.
Okay, so and
that's it.
But does like Nintendo Canada actually do development, or is it just the like distribution for?
I think their distribution and PR arm. Yeah.
Most of the Nintendo of sections, like Nintendo of America, Nintendo of Europe, are more of a PR and translation stuff. Like the Treehouse is a lot of translation stuff and them doing videos and stuff, but they themselves, I don't think, actually make games from like code.
Yeah, there'll be a support arm there and stuff. There's probably, there could be developers there for all we know, but it's never really been brought up that NOC never shows up in credits, it seems, in games that I've played. I never see a thing that goes back to Nintendo of Canada. I'm like, oh.
Nintendo of Canada especially is probably just we have a place here because that means we can we have a section of some stuff that can happen here, but for the most part, we're kind of under the Nintendo of America area.
But we do know that Canadian French is a real thing because we saw that show up in Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, as I did that story on.
Until that happened in that video game, we were never totally certain, but now we know for sure French Canadians are real.
Well, we know that Nintendo of Canada must be having some sort of influence on what makes it into these games. So
that's cool. So I guess that's one aspect of this story, is that this might be the first actual development arm of Nintendo in Vancouver or in BC. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's exciting.
All right, let's move on to other Nintendo stuff. And so this is talking about when the Xbox was first being developed by Microsoft. Apparently they tried to circumvent actually having to make their own and buy Nintendo.
Yeah. Now there are other aspects of that story, like they said they tried to buy EA. And when you read the story, it's like somebody says we tried to buy EA and somebody else says we went to EA to see if they would be willing to put up their games on the Xbox.
And they probably did both.
And they probably did both. But Nintendo was like straight up, we were trying to buy them.
I love and I mean, it's basically that's the entirety of the story. They tried to buy Nintendo, but I do like the picture that Beige paints in this thing. I do just the image of the Microsoft executives being in that boardroom, just being laughed at by a whole ton of Japanese businessmen, is just a wonderful, probably not true, but still a wonderful image.
Yeah. I mean, this story, Microsoft trying to buy Nintendo, is the story that has spun out of the actual article into a lot of the sites, because it's funny to be like, you thought you could go buy Nintendo? But I think the Bloomberg article is retrospective oral history is what they call it.
So I have a few things to say about this. So they're calling it the oral history of Xbox, which was then, of course, transcribed carefully to the written word and presented in purely textual format, which means it's not an oral history. But getting beyond that thing that always bothers the hell out of me, they were
transcribed oral history is still oral. That's still oral history.
Look, we're talking about it. We're saying it out loud.
So anyway, they also tried to purchase other companies like Square. And it's also based upon, here's what everyone remembers about the stuff that went on. The Square one they got turned down for because somebody came into the room, and then there was like a translator basically said, "Square will not be taking your deal because the banker has deemed it too low," and that was the end of the meeting. That was the last thing they said.
Think about that though. They tried to buy Square.
Yeah.
It's not Square anymore, right?
No, it's Square Enix.
Yeah, which means later
Somebody made a better offer, apparently.
Yeah.
Clearly. I think Square ended up buying Enix as a result. But the thing that gets me is, we have to keep it in context, that at the time they made this offer, the N64, so the Sega Dreamcast has essentially fizzled out. The N64 is reaching the very end of its lifetime, because we're into about the year 2000 at this point, January 2000. The GameCube does not come out until 2001. So they are already developing the GameCube in the background. They're kind of, I'm sure, betting on that to be a big thing.
And being like probably really close to being done in their development, because they got to go through the promotion cycles for that soon.
And the GameCube represented a big change for Nintendo. I'm going to get into some weeds here, and I apologize. Maybe it's too weedy, but the N64 was based on a MIPS microprocessor, and had a lot of like SGI involvement and like all these other kind of things that were going on. And this change to the GameCube was, we're moving to a disk-based system, not a cartridge-based system. We're moving to a PowerPC-based system with ATI. We're going to ATI to get them to do the GPUs. We're going to IBM to make PowerPC processors to use in this. In this thing. They had basically made a lot of changes technologically to say, we're going to do this. So it stands to reason that Nintendo was, because they weren't like, well, we're going to develop another console, it's going to be great. It's just an evolution on what we've done before. It's a huge jump in a brand new direction for them. Of course they're going to be like, we don't think that we want to just be reduced to a software company and start making shit for you. But they were in third place, essentially, even at that time. Even like Dreamcast had already kind of fizzled out, and the Nintendo 64 was still alive, but it's like, are we actually, we might be in second place behind the PlayStation, but are we actually second place currently? Like, is that how we feel?
Think about it in that regard or not, but that would have been the thing, right? Microsoft showed up and was like, hey, you should just make software, we'll handle the game console. And if they were already like steps away from launching a new console, that whole offer's got to feel really weird, because you're just like, no, we already have something coming out that's CD based.
But EA had a great read on it, because they said to Microsoft, you guys come in here, you buy us, acquire us, do whatever, and then you lose interest in like 2 years. You decide the Xbox is not going to pan out for you for whatever friggin' reason, and the Xbox is the only thing you end up making. That's fine for you. You write that shit off on your balance sheet. You guys are worth billions and billions of dollars. EA at this point not worth as much as Microsoft. What happens to us? And the guy who's the CEO of EA was like, I want to know who gets fired when this goes down. Like, I want to know whose ass is on the line for when this thing fails. And that you tell us that, we're more willing to come on board with you. And they were not, it's like that was not going to be a thing for them. And I feel like in the same way for Nintendo, it's like, we've been here for about 100 years. We've been making game consoles for a hardware period. We've been making electronic hardware longer than Microsoft has ever made electronic hardware.
What would have been their handheld at the time? Would have been Game Boy Color
Game Boy
or
Advance.
Game Boy Advance?
Game Boy Advance, I think.
And that was still doing pretty
just came out around that time, because it was it connected to the GameCube when the GameCube came out. So I think it might have just been coming out just at that time.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's the thing, is it's like, Microsoft had no hardware experience beyond making some Sidewinder joysticks, really. Gaming was not a thing that they could even say, we know what we're going to do. And that's why I put in the story, it's like, to walk in and say, your hardware sucks and we've never made any before, but we know that ours is already better than yours, that's super ballsy. And I can see why they would get laughed out of the room.
I mean, did they say your hardware sucks? Did they talk? Or is that just
one of the
inferring?
One of the guys did say, we walked in there essentially saying your hardware stinks. Or stank. And I'm kind of like, I know that's not a real quote, but it's essentially what you said you were saying.
It's what you see in fandoms of the survivors of the video game console wars, though, right? It's the Nintendo doesn't get in line and doesn't do their thing, which is often seen as a weakness, but it's also kind of their strength and why they're still like doing stuff that's really kind of interesting and weird. And I know I was listening to a podcast where someone had said they think that Nintendo would rather just cease to exist than to stop making hardware.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, probably, but also Nintendo was a toy company. They would probably just start doing something else.
Yeah. They'd find their pivot.
Because it's not like they've stopped making toys and stuff. They do still occasionally make like a new thing or bring out a retro thing, and I think they just pivot.
Yeah.
I'm imagining because of course when the GameCube came out, like the majority of Nintendo consoles, like the GameCube is fundamentally kind of an underpowered system.
Yeah.
For its time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As almost all Nintendo consoles are.
Yeah, it hasn't really changed.
And so you can imagine that like if Nintendo had bought, or if Microsoft had bought Nintendo and therefore got access to all their stuff, and then they're like, so this is what we're working on, GameCube, Nintendo would be like, oh no. Like, because like I was just looking it up, when the Xbox came out, it was like, in terms of like processor power, however you view that, because it was just a commodity PC in a special box with a bunch of stuff attached to it. But like the stuff in it was just and that's what Microsoft knew how to work with. And it was like twice as fast. It was like an 800 megahertz computer.
He's like a Pentium 3, I think, yeah.
As opposed to the GameCube, which was like a 350 megahertz power PC.
Yeah.
Obviously, those aren't directly...
no, there's no direct correlation, but yeah.
Correlation. But it's... You can imagine that Microsoft like wouldn't have understood how Nintendo operates with the like, it doesn't matter that we're lower power because we know how to use it and we know how to we're putting out the games and we're putting out the stuff. Whereas, even now Microsoft's whole sort of mode of operation is, they get the maximum amount of power you can and leave it to developers to do whatever they want with it. And, fairly hands off in that respect.
There's also this sense, I think, with Nintendo too, that as a larger point that, and I think it was Hiroshi Yamauchi, in fact, who did say that it's like, it doesn't make sense for us to put out incredibly powerful consoles, because he said, I don't think people want that kind of power. I think people want to be able to play a game, and the console is the thing getting in their way of playing the game. If they can't afford the console, then they can't buy a game. So we're going to put out less powerful consoles that you can still play games on, you can still have a good time with, even though the games will end up costing the same as any other game that's out there, but at least you'll be able to afford the console. That's kind of been their idea. And it's very...
And like Nintendo games had never been really marketed on their amazing visuals.
Realistic, yeah.
They've been marketed on how fun they are to play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean that seems to be the core value of what they want to do with their games in particular, and you can see it with stuff they're trying to do with the consoles and technology they bring out.
Yeah.
Everyone says that Nintendo doesn't want third parties, and I'm like, I think they do. I just don't think they want to give up certain things to have them.
There's that too. So it's a fascinating look into what was going on at that time and seeing like the kind of what happened. It's like we got our
might have been.
Yeah, we got our courage up and we walked in there and said, we want to buy you. And they were just like, no, we're going to laugh you out of the room for an hour. It's like, that's...
We reduced Nintendo down to making only software at that time. And at best they'd been developing the GameCube.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have gotten the Wii. Don't know if we would have gotten motion controls. or sensor bar type things. They might have kind of tried to dabble in that, but it often seemed like that was stuff that other people would maybe do because it was the Wii was selling so hot.
Yeah, I don't know what they do with their hardware division, right? It's like, what do you do if you buy a company like that that's making a handheld game and is also doing a lot of hardware development? It's like, does Xbox turn around and say, oh, this is good, we can make use of this hardware division? Or do you, or do they slap that shit down being like, no, this is not what gamers want. Gamers want a dog bone controller
I would assume that Microsoft was doing this mostly to try to get a foothold into having a Japanese game developer. Because, like, when you look at how the Xbox started, it did not do very well in Japan, and they didn't seem to have a lot of Japanese studios at the time, right? They focused more on Western.
Like, yeah, I mean, there was always the thing with, like, Xbox had, like, original Xbox, I had, like, one JRPG. Like, they had, like, nothing in that sort of realm.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's
they're
more
primarily
of what they were
into
after.
the, like, first-person shooters and that kind of stuff. Generally.
Yeah, and I assume that's more what they would have been after at that time, to be like, this way we can get into this market, people will know this brand name with this software. It's also popular in the market that we think we're already going to be good in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
2000 was such a long time ago. Like 40 years practically.
Now let's talk about EVE Online. The game that's the most fun to not play.
Mm-hmm.
And this big war that's been happening, which I mean, Graham sort of summarized it in the story, but it is. I love that they are at this point now where there's so many people trying to fight all in one place that the servers can't handle. I mean, because that has been a factor in previous big wars.
Okay.
There's this thing called time dilation that they implement when they are having a lot of server problems where, basically time in game slows down, so it has more time to calculate everything out properly. But it's weird because time is slow in that one system, but not everywhere else, which has caused problems in previous like big wars, because what'll happen is because everything else in the universe is running at normal speed, but just this one system is running slower. What that means is that people can keep arriving to the fight. Like, people can go to work and then come back, and only like an hour has actually passed in the fight. And so they'd be like, great, I can come back in.
Yeah,
and so the fight will go on much longer than it would have otherwise.
Right.
But in this case, even time dilation didn't cut it. And so things started completely falling apart with people not being able to, target properly, ships warping into the system without their weapons, without their crew, like the ship just warps in as a ghost ship.
It's like some kind of transporter accident malfunction.
Yeah. Which,
it's funny.
Yeah, I love that idea that it's actually kind of in game, like in universe, that like temporal cosmic warp things are screwing up, and when too many ships get into one area, the gravitational field gets messed up. I don't know. Whatever you want, whatever kind of the tachyons get.
I mean, that seems like a really, like, if it hasn't been explored already, it seems like a pretty good sci-fi premise to be like, if too many ships warp into the same area, we actually physically slow down time, so you're not allowed to do that. Please stop doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I know that in Next Generation, they did a thing where if you, they realized that everyone warping was tearing tiny tears in the space-time continuum. And they were like,
you had to put like a
speed limit
on the universe.
Which was actually really like, and I'm like, there's so much hay you could make out of that, where it's like they can only go up to warp 5 normally, and they had to agree it's like you only get to go over warp 5 for an actual good reason, that there has to be like reasons to do it. And I was like, that's kind of cool that they said we're gonna try to respect this thing, and it's the kind of thing that, I mean, as people are saying, it lasted for all of what, 4 episodes? And it's like, sure, but that idea of the Enterprise never does, because the Enterprise is always in danger, but anybody else should have to be like,
They have special dispensation.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
and then
they
they'd
get
be
to
like,
do it.
well, now we've got a thing on it to compensate for that, so we're fine now.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't know where the Eve story was going when Graham was talking, and then it got to the point where it's like, oh, the servers can't keep up, and it messed a bunch of things up for people.
Yeah, I imagine when that happens, because it's not like that kind of thing has never happened on a server based game before, right? Where more people show up than they expect, and then there's a bunch of server problems. And I can only imagine that it's a very special kind of anxiety of being extremely over twice as many people that we thought were going to show up than we did. That's really cool. Oh shit, twice as many people showed up than we thought, and we did not.
Yeah, it's not it's at all of a sudden weird that.
Yeah.
And
I just imagine that's very special. It's a feeling that I never want to have.
Well, and CCP is a little bit unique in that they have this very quite strict hands-off policy with their game. Not that they won't interfere with things sometimes, but they're very reluctant to interfere with stuff. There's been other instances. Somebody ran a pyramid scheme in the game, like a legit pyramid scheme.
Cool.
Great. Yeah, someone did a thing where they someone ran a bank and then stole all the money. Like someone was like, hey, deposit your money here and we'll do the thing, and then just took all the money and left.
Yes.
ISK in this case. And people complained to CCP and they're like, it's not our problem.
Yeah. The hell do you want us to do about it? You gave them all your money, you idiots.
But I kind of respect that, like that they're basically they've created the universe, they're God. And so yeah, they don't get involved in the petty matters of mortals.
No, but they're like, if there's game breaking stuff, we'll probably fix that, but we're not going to retroactively fix stuff that people got out of it, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so even in this situation where the game did legitimately break, they're fixing it as little as possible. If you can't actually log in, they're setting it up so you can do that.
I mean, if you can't log in, you can't play.
But for people, they say, both people who lost ships, in some cases, as we talk about, we talk about the real world value, $340,000 US. What that means, the real world value, what that means in the context is that you can buy ISK, the in-game currency. Effectively, you can buy it for money. You can buy things that you use to buy ISK or whatever, but you can get ISK for real world money. So if you did convert this amount of ISK back into real world money, that's what you would end up with. You can't actually do that conversion. You can't convert ISK into real money. Mm-hmm. Normally, there are certain circumstances where it has happened, but under normal circumstances, you cannot convert ISK into real world money legitimately. So technically, the $340,000 US that was destroyed is not like actual money that's gotten destroyed, but in-game currency.
Is this a thing? Because I don't play Eve, but I imagine I don't think anyone in Lure does. But is this a thing where because those ships they exploded, you now have to go acquire a new ship?
Yeah, like the ships
can't put it back together microscopically. I'm assuming the ones that are ghost ships are just going to be impossible to recover, but
they're
technically still there.
Yeah, they're effectively destroyed, I guess. Even though they're sort of operating as this weird kind of ghost fleet, which from a lore perspective is super sweet. That's like some Lord of the Rings stuff right there. Like somebody's gonna the Chosen One comes and commands the ghost fleet.
Isn't it basically just Firefly?
Serenity universe?
Yeah, where you where they keep running across all the ships that have basically been, because it's not like, I can't remember the
So all the Reavers had a bunch of ships. There's a whole ship graveyard that kind of goes around their between
Right.
them and the planet they had to get to, which was
but they didn't like take people's ships most of the time. They took the people.
Yeah, because they're
right?
crazy.
Because like Borg would take all the stuff and do stuff with it.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's
we should watch Serenity again. Maybe the Shivers.
Eve is great. All the stories that come out of Eve are always so fascinating, and I'm very interested. See, what's interesting about this is that this is now that they know that this is the reality of the situation. Now this changes the tactics that they're going to be using in future, because this fight is not over.
Yeah.
So this changes the tactics that they'll be using in going forward in the war. Maybe there'll have to be lots more smaller skirmishes, perhaps.
Or if you have a big enough coalition, and you know that there's going to be another big coalition in a certain area.
I mean, maybe you want to mess things up for them, yeah.
You on purpose send a bunch of low, unimportant ships or whatever. You send a ton of those in. You just basically put money into a bunch of small ships that can jump, and you send thousands of them into the sector that those are in, so that everyone starts getting screwed up.
Just to ruin their fight, yeah.
Because you either ruin their fight, or you get to maybe affect their ships, and you send in a bunch of low end stuff that's not valuable, but you ruin their Titans.
I think this is all gonna fall down to how do you define success in your fights? Is it I have to blow up the most ships? Probably not anymore.
Yeah.
Can I disable the most ships?
I do think that, because we keep saying ghost ships, and I have no idea how this is actually working in Eve, but if the ship exists, even though you can't get access to it, there's no way you can hop on a friend's ship, or they can't go tow it back for you, and you can't go out there and get back on it or whatever. And if the people can't take ownership of them, they're just kind of out there. But if it exists in your inventory as something you own, as an asset, then that's transferable, is it not? And can you not then have people start trading? That's what I wonder. It's can you actually start trading a transferable asset, a ship that can't die, but it's
like the gold standard or whatever, right? It's we're changing ownership of this ship, even though the ship itself never moves anywhere.
Yeah.
I feel like
to be honest, I don't know what the details of how this actually works and whether these ships will be retrievable at some point or what. But anyway. Super interesting.
I mean, there's a whole treasure trove of ships over there. People should just go and get them.
Yes.
More ships should show up. I'm sure that won't affect anything badly for you at all.
And then finally, Breath of the Wild turns out uses the me character designing system, which is I love the idea behind this idea that, by using the same thing that Mii's have, but then basically applying not a filter, but basically making Zelda-ified versions of all the things that you can do to your Mii in terms of facial features and stuff. It would be awesome if there were just other even DLC Mii packs that you could get that change the theme of your Mii from Zelda to something else, to Mario, to whatever.
If Mii's were still a thing that Nintendo was using primarily, because they're kind of not.
They use them for
My Nintendo. They're kind of relegated.
My Nintendo. They use them for the your avatar for your profile.
Yeah,
and it's because you can make a Mii on the Switch.
But if any part of that was still interesting to be able to say, well, what if you wanted to get somebody who was an NPC that you liked from within there and be like, oh, I want. Technically, Zelda is an NPC. Technically, she might be made up to kind of work in a similar context. Can you pull all that data out of her character model and say, can that be mapped back to what a Yumi is like? I don't know. What I did hear is that this knowledge, because I said it's been discovered, and it's it wasn't discovered immediately, right? But I didn't want to start another thing it's been revealed, but here I am. it's that this wasn't, I guess, common knowledge to the larger world until recently, but within the Breath of the Wild modding forum, everyone has kind of known that this was the case. This is the first time somebody's been like, I figured out how to take this information from a me and do an inject. So now we can take the information from anywhere and do an inject.
Yeah,
and I might even start doing commissions.
That's what made this popular. Is that person? I can't remember their name. It's in the story somewhere.
Alice. Well, it's Hey, Heroic.
Made a tweet, and that's why this story got picked up everywhere to be like, oh shoot, nobody knew, and it's like people who cared knew.
Yeah, have known for a few months or whatever. But I do think it's fascinating that.
But the idea that you could bring exactly your me into.
Yeah. And the fact that what great programming sense it makes for people at Nintendo to say, we have this system for defining character traits, like in faces and stuff like that. We've already developed it. Why don't we just use that same thing as a basis to work off of to generate NPCs?
I wonder what Admiral Akbar in Zelda looks like.
Yeah. There are some things apparently they have to leave out, but I would guess
not everything converts over in the same way.
It would be interesting to see how some of the really weird stuff. Yeah.
I mean, they said they were taking commissions, I believe.
Yeah. Hats can't make it over. Hats tend to turn into hair.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, really. I mean, well, I think it would be cool if Nintendo allowed for like some sort of DLC, change my NPCs in my Breath of the Wild game around. Just want them to let me character create Link at this point. Or let me put him as a
all right, we've got
I do want to point out on that last story, Beach basically wrote it just so that he could write that weird line at the end about wanting to ride the Lord of the Mountain.
Yeah. Just like, I want to just get on Miyamoto's back like a piggyback and just ride around. So anyway.
Then we had Minecraft.
Yeah, so Minecraft Earth.
Yep.
Kaputski.
Hadn't even heard of it.
Which, I saw the announcement for it. And
didn't they show it off at like an E3 or something?
Yeah, like I saw the announcement.
And that was like
it. But to be honest, I didn't know it was actually like out yet.
Yeah, neither did I. And that kind of reflects the comments on the episode, really. It was a lot of people were like, that was out. Thought that was in beta.
And also, obviously with everybody not going outside, it hasn't really done very well. So, no great loss. Apparently, this story seemed to be also largely dunking on the fact that everybody has a copy of Minecraft.
Yeah.
Which wasn't something that I was aware was like a thing but apparently they were giving out the like Minecraft Bedrock edition with new versions of Windows for a while.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah, there's this thing that happens on CheckPoint whenever you guys make a statement that's like very like, okay, everybody's got this, or everybody born on this time or whatever, where effectively we have a lot of comments telling us that they do not have a copy of Minecraft.
And I'm like, come on.
They would take a free one.
You're all part of the DuckTales generation, right? But so...
Which DuckTales, old or new?
So anyway, what made me like... I used to work at a library in charge of the computer lab, and I would have kids come in all the time, and we didn't have Minecraft installed on any of these computers because I knew we didn't have them installed on any of these computers. And I would come in and they'd be playing Minecraft, and I have no idea how they would do it. But if there was a Java edition of Minecraft, I guess.
Yes.
And that's what they were playing on. And I guess that was free?
Yes, I think so.
It shouldn't be. It's not supposed to be free.
I think there was a version that was free. But it's different. It's a specific version, or it is the version they tend to give out for free if they do give out, or something.
So that's probably it. Minecraft Java launched as a free thing before 1.0. That's probably what these kids were coming in and using, because I was just like, I thought Minecraft was just always free. And when I heard people like, I have to get a free copy of Minecraft, I'm like, Minecraft is free. That's just how it is.
No. It's just, like a bunch of people who've always had Minecraft, and so you're like, well, everyone must just be able to get that for free.
Yeah, they're just free copies of games that have always been out. They're just... So I was like, how is Mojang worth so much money when the game they make they give away for free? But...
merchandising generally is what you do in that sense. If you have a game that's not doing microtransactions and is free, that then like they would probably make quite a bit. They probably do make quite a bit of money off of the merch that they sell.
I mean, they do charge for it now.
Yeah, that's good. Pay people for their work. That's important.
I do want to point out, Beach tweeted that he did somehow have Minecraft on the computer that he was on. That was not him saying he was going to play it.
No.
He will probably never do that.
Also, I should probably, anyone want to hear the behind the scenes on that joke? Because I thought that was like perfectly timed, which is why I did that.
That's why we're here.
That's not my computer.
Yeah, I know.
It's not my copy of Minecraft. It's not my computer. It's a work computer that we have that happened to have Minecraft installed on it. I don't know who put it there.
Probably James.
Probably or Graham.
Nah, I'm gonna blame James.
But somebody put it there, and I'm just kind of
Only
like,
James
neat.
plays Minecraft out of everybody I know.
Can't lie
have
on
a
Twitter.
Nobody else plays. Oh, but you can.
Yeah, they might have to put a little special thing underneath my tweets to say this claim is being disputed.
I mean, they should just put that on your profile completely. Really, given what you tweet.
I changed one of my profiles recently on a thing that I'm on that just says I post violence because I really do sometimes. Just terrible, violent things.
All right. Also, there was the sweet speed run. If you've been checking out HDQ, there was two back-to-back Sonic the Hedgehog world record speed runs, which is pretty awesome. The Android version of Sonic 2, and a fan game of or a fan version of Sonic 3 and Knuckles for PC, I think, or something like that.
Oh man, Sonic and Knuckles was so cool. It was a convertible cart you could throw.
I
loved that thing.
Oh, was Sonic 1? Oh, okay. I apologize.
Flippy thing.
It's super neat actually if you watch, especially Flying Fox's run, who did the Android Sonic, because the way it's timed, the way it's accepted to be timed is using the in-game timer, which stops during cutscenes or like between levels and stuff, and so the clock time is different from the actual like what the world record time is. So she finished it in like 20 minutes and something. But then, like, during the credits at the end, she got confirmation that was actually, because they had to do the calculation for actually, like, what was the real time that took for the world record purposes. And she got that info. This kind of delayed action of her getting the info that she get world record was great. She's like, ah.
It's like watching the people in the box after figure skating, where they're like waiting for the judges' scores to come in and all the conferring and stuff to go on. Where it's like I'm sitting there thinking like I know I did pretty good, but I got to see what they have to say, and then it comes in, you're like, and then the tears start, and you're just like, oh, give me my flowers, and I'm ruining my mascara, whatever. We had an interesting conversation about this though too. Is that the nature of speedruns is that timing a speed run is always different depending upon what the game is and what it supports.
Right.
That
and what the
some
community
games,
has decided is going to be the time for it.
Like, and we had said that in GoldenEye, there's like lots of, everyone gets, how fast can you do Cradle? Like 10 seconds, right? And it's like, sure, but I can do it in 9:52. And it's like, well, no, it didn't say you did it in 9:52. It's the game says it took you 10 seconds to do it. Even if you did it 8 thousandths of a second faster than that, it's like you still did it in 10 because it only tracks by the second. And it isn't until somebody drops a second in GoldenEye that it's actually counted as a new world record. And it's kind of astounding that it's like we've come up with these ways to track, and then people have to have external counters so that they can see, am I actually getting faster or not? Am I actually what's actually causing things to change? And at a certain point, I think, Paul, you said that the GoldenEye speedrunning community just started to like slowly drift apart because you couldn't get below a certain score. Well, and then they're like,
with GoldenEye,
what's the point?
I mean, with GoldenEye, the problem was that people figured out that the fastest way to do it was by looking at the floor the whole time. And that was just like not that, because that was the only way that made the N64 not frame skip or not lose
because it doesn't have to render as much stuff, right?
Yeah, no, I understood probably why.
But the and but people didn't like, and that was just like not fun to play that way. So people stopped speedrunning. But I like, especially when they use the in-game timers for like super, like talking like Mario 1, like Super Mario 1, right?
Yeah.
So, but because of the weird aspects of the in-game timers of that game influence how the speedrun happens. With Mario, the timer has sub-second precision, but it isn't actually true. Like, it actually, there's certain, it's only every whatever eighth of a second that actually changes.
Yeah.
And so it makes a big difference when they're doing speedruns and stuff, and that's why often they it's you have to do them on, like, you have to do it with an original console, right? Like, because if the timer on your emulation thing is slightly off, that completely changes the whole run. In fact, with the one of the amazing things with I remember with Super Mario speedruns is Super Mario is so locked in, like,
Yeah.
not only from a speedrun point of view, but from like a back end, everyone, the code has been decompiled, everyone knows exactly how it works, down to the random generation stuff. So actually how they measure the back end measurement, how they can verify what your speed is on the final, when you're fighting Bowser for the last time after World 8, the configuration of how he fires the fireballs is different depending on what frame of the game you are on. And it's always the same on that frame of the game, on the timer that started when you hit start back at the beginning of the game. And so if they know that if the fireballs are in this particular configuration, you are on exactly that frame of the game.
Wow. Holy crap.
It's nuts. But anyway, speedrunning is super sweet. It is a very one of those super interesting communities that has that fractal ability where you can go as deep into it as you really want to.
Is it all just community based? Like, is there like a panel of judges for verification, or?
I mean, fundamentally, it is all community based. There's like speedruns.com and HDQ. Like there's people who have put themselves up as kind of arbiters of the thing, but there isn't any like central authority or anything.
Okay,
There's
I was just curious because
speedruns.com or something.
So it's more like Guinness World Records, where it's like they're the ones who are going around to make the book and whatnot, but it's not like they would necessarily be the definitive source.
Well, that was actually we did a story a few weeks ago about the Lost Galaxy or
Twin Galaxies.
Twin Galaxy.
Right, yeah.
They had this big lawsuit because it turned out that some of their that the previous owners of it had falsified some of their records, and the new owners were like, if we have false records, that destroys our credibility and makes it so that it destroys our future credibility as well. That now, if people can't trust that our records are true, then that basically makes it so our entire service is pointless.
Right. Okay.
And so then you ask yourself, you're like, okay, but then how do you, what effect does it actually have? Oh, these scores aren't real or whatever. It's like, oh, things are in dispute. And it's kind of like, let's look at it a little wider. The company itself is not worth anything because their credibility is shot. So the actual financial value of the company is shot because nobody believes that what they have is actually a definitive list of here's the fastest, here's the best. It could just all be made up. And if it's just smoke, then there's no actual value. And that's the thing that got me, is it's like, if you want to try selling this company to somebody in the future and you can't do it because they're like, well, we can't trust anything here is accurate, you've basically devalued the company in the first place.
Yeah, I was just curious because like I follow like Laura K. Buzz, and I know recently she did a speed run for the Cooking Mama Switch game because no one had done a speed run for it, and it seems like a thing she wants to do now is like go and find games that no one's just bothered with, but there's an entry for. And I'm like, that sounds like fun. That sounds interesting. And like,
that's how those things even get started sometimes.
But I assume that it's like somebody still has to verify that. Like someone still has to say, okay, yes, we will put your numbers on our board of thing.
And keep in mind too, the Cooking Mama Switch game is an interesting point because it was a game that was officially released and then not officially released.
Yeah, that was a weird.
Right. So, but I mean, but this is the thing where it's with speedruns, it is pretty much just if you can convince enough people that that's your speedrun, then that's your speedrun. Like that's essentially it's just a community consensus thing. And especially with the like older games that are well known, because they are so well known, you know, people can spot frauds very easily too.
I mean, I imagine a lot of it's done via streaming now.
Yeah, but even then, people can stream fake. There has been instances of people stream fake. But yeah, this typical setup now is like the screen, the person's face, and also their like hands on the controller. That's like the whatever that's like the gold standard setup so that people can see that your fingers are moving when appropriate.
Rhythm games, got it.
Yeah,
that's how people do rhythm games because they have to prove that they actually hit all those buttons.
Yeah.
Stuff we didn't talk about. There's just a couple stories here. This the one I thought was actually kind of quite interesting. Talking about Flight Simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator, game just very cool game that just came out a little while ago. They've pushed out an update that adds all sorts of real-time snow effects, which is super neat. But also, it's one of those things that you don't think about. But so Microsoft Flight Simulators, all the terrain is real from GPS or from mapping satellites because they have access to Bing Maps or whatever, right? Like,
and it'll respect topography and all that kind of stuff.
However many terabytes worth of data that they crunched down and used in order to make things, which is why we did stories about certain things being like big, huge
too tall
towers or big pits or different things because there's little glitches in the data. But fundamentally, it's good. But also, the thing you don't think about is that in order to be visible in a satellite photo, it has to be a clear day. So if it's snow and overcast, the camera doesn't get a picture of it. The satellite doesn't get a picture of it, which means that almost all of the terrain that is available in satellite photos is like springtime or like summer or during the when there isn't snow on the ground, because usually when there's it can be clear when it's snowing, but usually when there's snow, it's overcast. And so they had to actually develop a whole system to artificially snowify stuff, snowolate things. I don't know what the technical term would be, but to change it depending on the season and the time and all this different stuff, and have it move properly and sit on trees properly so it hang. One of those things that it's like there's an easy way to do it, and then there's a really, really, really hard way to do it. And they appear to have done it the hard way.
Yeah.
Generally,
it's
the
not
hard
just
way
like,
means...
let's just make the ground white.
I'm watching it right now, and it kind of looks astounding to just watch trees being dusted with green just from the top. Like, it looks like every other kind of visual you get from a...
I did think that they meant, like, it would be actually snowing. But I guess that would probably make the game harder to play and less fun.
It's fun because
there are storms and stuff in the game, I think, though. But
do you have control over those, or do they just kind of happen? Is this like Breath of the Wild weather, where you're like, now I can't see anything and everything's miserable? Or
I mean, I'm assuming so. But
it reminds me a bit of when you're going through Google Maps and you're looking through certain areas and you start zooming in on Google Maps and it's like it's summer, it's winter. Because they only had the close-up data from a satellite that was passing over during the wintertime, and so all of a sudden it's like, oh look, it's Grand Prairie in the wintertime, but if I zoom out a couple, oh, it's Grand Prairie in the summertime.
Yeah, there's just a square of winter in the middle of the place.
Yeah.
You can real weather. You can choose live weather. Oh, neat.
Yeah. So you can
So you can choose whether you want it or not. Okay.
Hook up an expression pedal so that you can just make the rain harder. Just like kind of push down on a pedal at yourself. Be like, it's harder.
Flight Simulator is not a game I'm going to play because I have other games. But I just want to know if people have to get rid of all their metal weapons when a lightning storm happens.
That's fair. You're in the air, so
you were in a plane, so you're probably already aft. But you know,
I don't think there are like weapons in the sense that you're thinking.
It's not those kind of planes.
Yeah, if I can fly the plane, then I can bring my weapons.
Cool. Oh no.
No one else is coming on that plane with me. Let's be clear.
This other story was a neat story, Paul.
About the video game source code.
Yeah.
Now this is something that we've talked about before on this, and just this idea of there's all this video game history that gets basically thrown away, especially there's a really good story on Ars Technica that's talking about the efforts to save this kind of stuff using with the video game historic foundation, I think it's called.
It's VGHF.
The Video Game History Foundation. Yeah, which is I think affiliated with like the Archive project and stuff, and also Frank Cifaldi, who you may know from various other things that he's worked on, including calling into Desert Bus once or twice, I believe. But the idea here is that not only like they initially were primarily working on like preserving games so that they can be played, but now they're also looking at the idea of preserving like source code for games because that really, in fact, I mean some of the stuff we've been talking about in terms of speedrunning, but because like really being able to see the source code, a knowledgeable person seeing the source code allows you to see exactly what the authors were thinking about and special cool new techniques that they used, stuff that they found. And it's so often this stuff, there's so many mergers and acquisitions and people coming and going from studios and things that often this kind of source code is totally lost. And the ironic thing is these days everyone's doing remasters and remakes, and they often try to get this source code and it's gone, or they go talk to the video game history people because they're the ones who are actually like sometimes like literally they'll find like, oh, we found the source code. And it's it's always like in the attic on a bunch of floppy disks that we were about to throw
some
out.
Weird box.
And boy, they should not have survived that long, but they have.
That same story has been repeated so many times. The like, oh yeah, it's been deleted off the servers, but the guy like took it home to like work on it on the weekend, and so happens to have the disks.
And it's funny too because it's like that's definitely like you got to think of it also as being like manuscript snapshots as opposed to like we've kept a published book on a shelf because manuscripts a lot of time have a lot of extra things in them that maybe notes and whatever else that can be a little more illuminating. But also something this article covers is the idea of if you have the source code and you want to be able to re-implement or do a remaster or something kind of like what Disney did with Aladdin and Lion King, a lot of times you're going to hand that source code over to people who are modern programmers, and they're going to look at this stuff and they're going to be like, I don't know why the decisions were made to do things in certain ways. I don't understand how by reading this is actually going to be more illuminating to me about how to make this game work in the first place. We would probably do things differently, or we would have other things operate in a different context. And sometimes it's even more. There's a comment that somebody had made down near the end where they'd said they were on the team, I think, that worked on, was this Grim Fandango Remastered? What did they work on? No, this person worked on, they were a producer on the Age of Empires 2 HD and like the remakes of that in Microsoft in 2013, and they were saying that going back to the archives to get source code and then looking at source code, it's like, that's a good place to start, but now you have a shit ton of stuff to read to try to make decisions about why was this game made the way that it was? Am I being led down the garden path towards making the same kind of
Oh, you're gonna have the same kind of flaws.
well, not even that, but like the compromises. That's it. You're going to make the same kind of compromises they had to make in order to make something like that in the first place. It's like, are you not better off sometimes to be like, look at the source, maybe you gain some information from it, but you only really need to attack it for information if you are running into a part where it's like, I don't know how we implement the same thing to make this stuff work the same way. And so it's very interesting to have these things as a historical document, because it is super important to like be able to look back at stuff like that to see how did somebody do like a really cool thing. Being able to look at Doom and Quake is very informative as to what was going on at the time in video gaming. But not everything is going to be important or illuminating, you know, but you don't know that until you actually have historians dive in and look at it.
They always talk about like you know, for something that is like open source, like say like they talk about like the Linux like kernel code. There are a surprisingly large number of swear words in the like you know, in the comments in the Linux source code.
Yeah.
People
I was
be
gonna
like,
say,
what
like,
the hell is this?
Like, I want to know what comments got left for other people in the source code, or that people made, because I know you can do that without it being seen in game.
I mean, something else. I think this is also in Ars Technica as like a random bit. You know, you're talking about Quake and Doom and stuff. And for Quake, there's John Carmack actually developed a new way of taking the square,
Fascinating for square root.
Yeah, the square root of a number, which was like twice as or three times faster than just doing it the normal way, and doesn't give you the answer, the exact same answer, but it gives you a very, very, very close approximation, and it's much faster to calculate. Close enough approximation for the purposes of doing a 3D game like Quake, where you have to do a square root of a number, you know, thousands of times in every frame, and so that they find out, and so there's actually has been a couple of instances of people releasing source code recently. I know the people, I forget the developing company, but the people who do like the Amnesia games released all their source code on GitHub with the proviso that it was like all our proprietary, like all our intellectual property is still our intellectual property, but you can look at this and check it out. It's a neat way of sort of splitting that, because everyone is very you know, restrictive with their like, but we don't want to give away our secrets. But at a certain point it's like, does it matter that much?
It depends on the value of the secret, really.
But in terms of like video game source code, like knowing but there's just some of the stuff going through, you know, finding out things about video games and how they were made, often how incredibly janky they are. They were put together.
I want to see the source code that has the note where someone's like, great idea for next big novel, cheese something, and then like you go down a few more lines, it's like, oh, great idea for the, like they were keeping a weird notebook, but they forgot to take those notes out.
Or the comments be like, you know, Dave, what the hell does this line mean? or like the ones I love are like, I do not understand this, but if I take it out, everything crashes. They'll be just like a random like magical number. Like they'll just be like, it's like assign this variable or multiply this by this like long number. And someone's like, where is this number coming from? What's happening? This works, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
How'd you derive this? Please give me a reason.
Can't take out superstitious.
Yeah. Magic. More magic. All right. I want to be clear, actually, about this next story, is that even though the headline is various Persona soundtracks now available on Spotify, Apple Music, it's just jazz, people. They're not Persona soundtracks. You're just listening to jazz.
That's kind of what Persona likes to do.
Yeah. Anyway, what's actually
Especially
happening
3,
here?
I think.
I mean, the soundtracks for Persona 2, 3, 4, and 5, and Q and Persona 4 Arena Ultimax are all available.
But not Q2?
I guess not.
It's too new, probably.
It's a 3DS game. It was one of the last 3DS games of the line.
I don't know what to say to that. That's cool, though. I mean, that's just like a sudden drop. Like, boom, here you go.
Yeah, I mean, presumably they're all licensed under the same thing, so it's just like, why wait? Why not just...
It's good. They have good music. I mean, they made rhythm games out of a good portion of those.
Yeah.
They're fun.
If you like jazz, I guess, go for it. If you remember the music from Persona games fondly, check it out. And then I think the last story we've got here is just a quick note that Fumito Ueda and his studio Gen Design has teased their next game. There's people behind Shadow of the Colossus, Ico, and The Last Guardian. So,
awesome.
Exciting. But
yeah, it's,
also, you know, you don't want to hold your breath on this one.
It's an image tease, right? Like, there's the article's
just
mostly
an image.
speculating. Like, we know they've been working on a game for a while. There was this image inside this other image with the other game images, and we know it doesn't belong to anything that's already released. Which I'm like, you know what? If you're gonna tease a game that way, you should, because watching the gaming community go into high speculation mode has to be fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But now he said that he wants his next game to come out faster than Last Guardian, but Last Guardian was 10 years. So
okay, yeah, I think it's a good goal, actually. If you have 10 years for your last game, you're like, I'd like this one to come out faster.
Good to go for 9.
That's a good goal. And 9.5, 9 3/4. There's lots of ways to get under 10, depending how you count.
Yeah. So we'll see. But I really liked Shadow of the Colossus is one of my favorite games, and I really liked Last Guardian as well. So I am excited for whatever he comes up with.
I mean, I'd love to have something, even if it was a spiritual sequel to Eco. I would love to play another game like that. I love the idea of playing in a... God, ever since being able to play a puzzle game in a real environment, despite how convoluted... The thing had its own windmill at one point, right? But it's like, despite how convoluted the design made sense. Like, everything about it was like the relationship of one piece to another in the entire space felt real to me. It felt like this place is supposed to exist this way.
It's like, is there an engine called Real?
No,
or is this just like 3D? What does this mean?
A problem I had. There's a game called Lost in Shadow that came out on the Wii, and when you play the first world of it, it really gives you that eco feel. It's a side scroller, but it gives you this sense of that you're playing as a shadow, and you can only move along areas that are being illuminated and making a shadow. You can only move along those shadows. So there's a break in a railing. That means there'll be a break in the shadow of the railing. You have to jump over it to like something else that makes a shadow. It's a very neat idea. The problem is that in the middle of the game, once you get past area 1 and you go through the remainder of the areas until you get to pretty much near the end of the game, it's really uninspired level design. Because it's just like, well, now we're going to insert a whole bunch of like weird tricks and shit that no actual layout of a level, like of a castle would ever have this. And it's very frustrating. And I'm just like, Eco was a castle first that was then adapted to make into something that felt like a real place, like a place to explore.
One of Hudson's last games before they didn't they go under when that game was coming out?
I don't know what game Lost in Shadow.
Lost in Shadow.
Maybe
one.
it was. I don't remember who did it, but
It's like
Yeah.
the difference between like in like say Portal, right? Like the difference between the areas that are like testing chambers, and then when you get like into the behind the scenes stuff,
yeah,
Yeah, this is one of Hudson's
Where
last.
and
where you're still using all the techniques, but it's a more sort of environment that isn't like specifically. It doesn't feel like it's been specifically designed to test you.
yeah, they don't feel like chambers anymore. It's like this is the behind the scenes area of these chambers, and that feels a little more realistic as a result. But-
Yeah, I mean, a good puzzle game done well is always like a fun go.
And I
like
think-
a poorly designed one is just frustrating.
Like when I run around Hyrule Castle in Breath of the Wild, despite the fact that it's hard feeling like this is how this castle should work, it does feel like enough of a labyrinth. I do feel myself getting lost wandering around it, and because it's, even though there's a lot of recognizable areas, and that's the kind of thing I had with Eco, where it's like I feel lost within the castle space. I feel lost within whatever it is that I'm doing, but at least it feels like it's a real place. And it feels even more like a real place, even though it's weird, than a lot of other places that I've been in video games. So I hope they do something like that again. I hope they give us something that definitely feels like a real space.
All right. Well, that is all the news we had today or this week. So
Yeah.
thank you all for joining us.
Do you recognize that our cutoffs for when we pick news tend to be Wednesday?
Yeah.
And also, none of us really want to talk about that other one.
It's not really video game news.
Yeah.
But coming up, we got Friday Night Paper Fight, where it's going to be Commander, and we are going to be joined by. Make sure I get her name. Talia, yes.
Yeah.
Who is Talia Vess, who, from what I understand, is a pretty hardcore Commander player, so should be a lot of fun.
Good.
And then on Saturday, Ian's going to be playing some Project Cars 2 on Play It Forward.
Oh, I see. Okay. Neat idea.
What's up?
I just saw Project Card 2 show up, and I was just like, is it wrapped back to Le Mans already?
Oh, no. He's doing, I think it's Saturday, and if you go to the next one, I believe it'll be Sunday as well. He's doing Saturday and Sunday over the course of January to try to get through
Two seasons.
And like he's, because it's kind of one of those games where it's like, well, where is the ending? How like long do you play forward?
Two seasons and a movie.
Well, that does mean if he's starting at 1 and Rhythm Cafe is at 4, then he's got 3 hours baked in to do that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Speaking of which, Rhythm Cafe Rocksmith is on at 4 as well, and make sure you catch that one live, because it probably will not go up on the YouTubes.
I definitely removed the VOD from Twitch last time. I think most of it got muted anyway, and I haven't tried to see if I could put it on YouTube, because I was like, well, maybe, but chances are good. I think Rocksmith is the game that constantly has been blocked because of the music that gets picked.
Right.
And then on Monday, we've got new Dice Friends. In fact, all through January, we've got a bunch of kind of one-shot little Dice Friends special events. First one is Jeremy is going to be doing a one-shot game entitled A Night at the Golden Duck. Very appropriate for Jeremy Petter. And it's based on... this is D&D, but OG D&D. We're talking...
Oh, cool.
We're talking old school D&D.
Ah, right. So this is definitely where all the TPKs are happening.
Yeah. The old school D&D is not kind, shall we say. So that'll be cool. That's going on Monday at 7 o'clock. Note, it's on at a later time than our normal Dice Friends streams. And that's... so just make a note of that. Sorry if that is after your bedtime, wherever you happen to be.
You can always
But
catch the VODs.
the VODs will be up on Wednesday.
Do we know it's? He's saying it's basic D&D, so it's first edition. This is not advanced D&D.
Is very old D&D from what I understand.
This is my understanding.
Like I don't think you can even be a magic user. I think you have to be a warlock or something like
Wizard. Mage.
kind
I will
of-
say,
magic
yeah,
user.
kind of weird thing.
I think all the players are magic users too, which is kind
Nice, even better.
I'll have to
Good
see how
one
that
shot.
goes. And then on Tuesday we got 9 o'clock with James Uno and Serge and maybe Beige. Now that he's big into Minecraft.
Hell no.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I would get up that early? Are you kidding
He
me?
can't seem to get Adam to play it. I don't see how he's going to get you to play it.
And then on Tuesday again we on Talking Sim, Cameron is going back to Hades, but he's going to be joined by Serge this time. So last time he and Matt did some Hades, and now it's going to be Cameron and Serge. So getting a bit of a different perspective. And then on Let's Nope, Ben and Adam, I guess they're done the Amnesia they were playing.
Oh,
So-
cool. All right.
Or perhaps they have forgotten. Ha!
They'll have to start over.
Oh,
New
wow.
game plus, no memory.
Yeah.
And then on Crossing the Streams on Wednesday, we are going to attempt to play Mansions of Madness, which you may recall is an actual physical board game that has a iPad companion app, and so we have a plan for how that's going to happen. But we should probably discuss it some more
Yeah, probably.
and figure that out. But
It
we
should be
think we'll
interesting
be
to
able
see
to
what
play
happens.
Cool.
it. So, thanks everybody for watching. Let's welcome people to the stream.
Hell yeah.
Starting with Rustin Skirk for 33 months. Thank you.
Tomasu82 for 45 months. It's fun. That's a fun name to say.
Ogyeon the Silent was here for 22 months. Thank you.
Fupoyut for 9 months.
Just smash the keyboard.
100 Abraham Lincolns for 75 months. I look forward to when your number and your name match up.
That's $500. Emergent Oss has been here for 37 months in a row.
Just like it when numbers match.
Mike Smith, 916 for 79 months.
Simon 40 Russell for 50 months. It's 10 plus months on your name.
RAL 15 for 35 months. Welcome back.
Artificer Zero for 5 months.
Dark Noct for 46 months. I'm assuming I said it properly.
Konda 020946 for 37 months. Try not to sub on your way to the parking lot.
Bladed Shadow for 66 months.
K Small Moon for 16 months. Welcome back.
Grulux has been here 8 months. Welcome back.
Tide Hollow Cat for 22 months.
Hey, I won!
Hooray.
Bladed Shadow, thank you for that
Nice.
gift.
Q Sick for 51 months. Welcome back.
9.5 gifted by 3 4/5. Oh, I don't know what to do. I don't want to do that math.
Paranamasiek 042 for 46 months. Welcome back.
Dadokin for 82 months. That's so many months.
That
It's Susan.
No, it is not, Susan. It is Muguru Unahu. So, welcome, and thank you, the Mirror Cat.
okay.
Oh, you don't,
Well,
you
I
don't,
guess
you don't,
I'll do
want, you don't want to have a turn?
I'll do Sniper Pumpkin now. Sniper Pumpkin for 62 months. Thank you.
Thought you might want a makeup name. And for the 804 bits, Farabender 27, Gap Filler 3 4/5, and Xanatos 69 bits.
Bits.
Thank you all very much for watching. Check out this week's episode of CheckPoint if you haven't. Although I guess you know everything that's in it now, but
It's pretty funny still.
You'll hear it in a much more condensed and probably funnier way. I hope funnier. We spent effort on making it funnier and with fun graphics.
Yeah, we put effort into it, so check it out anyway.
All right. Talk to you all later.
Bye.